Hello, how are you? Today we're going to discuss what English language teachers need to know, Understanding Learning from 2011. And I would like you to remember that these notes have been arranged in a manner that is a bit unusual. I start with the sentence system, the whole chapter, which is chapter 8, and then at the end of page 120, you move on to page 97, which is actually the previous chapter, chapter 7, the system of words, right? I forgot to tell you this book is by Murray and Christensen. So I do this because the first part for chapter 7 was not necessary, and well, I didn't want to start midway, right? So I did it like this. So as regards the concepts we will be discussing here, most of them should be known to you. Some of them will be new to you. You should know that initially you should become acquainted with all this language. If everything is new, well then be patient, but be ready to begin to incorporate all the language that I am teaching you here, right? So with the sentence system, we start actually talking about the difference between prescriptive and descriptive. This is a topic that is very dear to me and that actually touches upon our class. What I would like to say before we get into the topic is that both ideas, prescriptive and descriptive, are extreme ways of looking at the language. And as such, they're not realistic, right? Anything that is extreme, either good or bad, is not realistic, right? Because nothing is perfect. What is prescriptive? A prescriptive approach to language? Well, this means I'm gonna use it here. It's a way of looking at language from the perspective of what should be done, right? But mostly what is right and wrong. In linguistics, this dictionary tells us that we use it to describe the way language should be used, right? And the opposite is descriptive, that is to say, the language that simply tells us what is happening with language. And this is rather problematic, right? I would say that, I mean, taking one of the two extremes, I should say that Oxford Learners Dictionary, or dictionaries as a group, they lean towards prescriptive, though they try to be descriptive, right? And Merriam-Webster is more descriptive. However, it should be said that being dictionaries, people expect from a dictionary to be the leading voice in what is right and what is wrong, right? But at the same time, today, thinking of language in terms of what is right and what is wrong is in itself politically incorrect, right? Because we do not see speakers as making mistakes, but using the language as they have learned it. Now, what if we think about real examples so that we can put some perspective into this topic, right? You probably remember from the video on dictionaries that we looked up the word persuade, and we compared its meaning to that of convince, right? And if we go to the usage box, right, we're going to see that actually the comment at the bottom, I think that matters, is some speakers of British English think that this is not correct. Notice how politically correct that explanation is. I would say that many speakers of British English will say that is incorrect, right? But the word incorrect is too strong and it is politically incorrect. So people stay away from this kind of derogatory language that criticizes the way people speak, right? As I said, this is usually a problem. If we think of other words, and for example, if we look up the word fulsome in this dictionary, we will see that initially fulsome is a word that has a negative connotation, right? Because when you use it as with a fulsome apology, or to be fulsome in your praise, means that you're not really sincere, right? You're too generous excessively so, right? But if you look up this word here, actually it will merit a box that will explain this, a usage box, because fulsome has got to do with size, right? Abundance. But if we go down, sorry, well, you get actually two boxes, right? One usage guide, and you don't need to get negative about fulsome. So you see all the uneasiness surrounding the word fulsome, right? Because many people use it today simply to mean abundant, right? But when you say fulsome praise, how do you know if the person means a lot of praise or a lot of fake praise? Only the context will tell you that. And so this becomes a very dangerous topic, right? Now, the question of what is right and what is wrong doesn't solely refer to lexical choices. Many of these questions are discussed here in these videos on Merriam-Webster. And, well, you get the pronunciation for the word vase or vase, though to me that's a regional difference. But what about groceries or nuclear? What is nuclear? And I think I had the other video here. It's further ahead. Sorry. The other words that lead to confusion in pronunciation are the words mischievous. Well, and as I said, nuclear and groceries, right? You must have heard the pronunciation mischievous, right? Actually, this dictionary, Oxford, doesn't even acknowledge that pronunciation, right? So you only get mischievous, see? Mischievous. So it's not just words. If we were to go back to the videos, sorry, you would also get the difference between sneak and sneaked, right? I don't know if you ever thought about, sorry, sneaked and my mistake, and snuck. And what happens if I look up the word here? Let's see what Oxford has to tell me about that. It says that it is the past tense of sneak. And when I go to sneak, oh, sorry, I went to the noun. Remember that usually Oxford will give you the noun first. You will get a box, a usage box, telling us that North American speakers use the irregular form snuck, which basically they came up with. Sneak is a regular verb. Sneaked, right? This is something they come up with. Now, many people get very angry at this variant, snuck, and they say this word doesn't exist. And this is beautiful from Merriam-Webster, because Merriam-Webster, for example, the same goes with the word literally, or sorry, not the word literally. It's irregardless. Now, this word doesn't exist here. See? But if I look it up here, there it is. But it says non-standard. What happened? Actually, irregardless is a word that came to be through a mistake, right? You know that we have the expression regardless of something, and we also have another one that is irrespective of something. Well, speakers got confused and they came up with irregardless. It is perceived as being non-standard. Many people rail about this word, they hate it, and they say it's not a word. But Merriam-Webster editors say, wait a minute, it is a word. People say it, people use it. Maybe you don't like it, but the word is there. That is a descriptive approach to language. A prescriptive approach to language is this one. What? I don't know it. Never seen it. Okay, so notice that even in the American English dictionary, this word doesn't appear, right? Same problems will be encountered with the difference between infer and imply. Honestly, I will, as I said earlier, I will lean towards the standard version, right? What we consider the standard version or the acceptable version. Notice the word standard in itself is a sort of euphemistic way of saying the what is correct, right? And instead of using substandard, people are using non-standard, which is maybe less aggressive, right? Now there are many other there are also rules regarding language as to what we should do and what we should not do, right? Like never start a sentence with but, or don't split an infinitive, right? This is what we called shibboleths, right? A shibboleth, an old idea or principle or phrase that is no longer accepted, right? Nobody accepts that anymore. But sometimes it's difficult to decide whether something is simply being narrow-minded or whether we are trying to convey something. In the case of fulsome, you could see the different meanings and how difficult it is to understand what we are talking about. There's a linguist called Cameron who wrote an article called Problems of Prescriptivism, right? And she says that, Deborah Cameron, she says that this has got to do with the value we attached to language, right? This negative connotation or positive connotation. Usually it is a negative connotation, right? And that is true, and that is why today we favor more descriptive views, right? One more thing I want to say is that usually prescriptivism is associated with a pedant. Very careful. False friend alert. Pedante, no? Pedante. Now let's look at what pedant says. A pedant is a person too concerned with small details or rules. No es un pedante, ni de casualidad. Es una persona engreída, ¿no? Bueno, be very careful. Pedant is a huge false friend. Now, to wrap up the topic, and as you can see, this is something that really interests me. The question of prescriptive or descriptive is one that is very important to us from any point of view. But frankly, we need to know everything. Whether you're learning English to teach or to translate, initially the standard form is the one you should favor first, because it is the one that is actually more global. All of the other versions are actually variants that have to do with local uses of the language, right? So I'm not going to talk about a dialect, but regional differences of English. Now, it is very difficult to learn all the regional differences of English. And if you're going to teach, possibly you're going to teach the standard form, not the non-standard, though you may, right? You never know. And if you're a translator, usually we translate texts that are in standard English. But if we go into literature, there's going to be a lot of non-standard. And of course, there are many other sides to this topic. We're going to leave it here. But what I want to know is that in class we learn the standard form. And I do mention in passing when the situation merits it, the non-standard form, right? But we will go with the standard, right? And you have plenty of videos to watch from Merriam-Webster to become more acquainted with the topic. All right, the next topic we have here is syntax, right? When we talk about syntax, we talk about grammar, basically, right? Syntax is about how we put things in order, right? It's a word of Greek origin. It has to do with the arrangement of words, right? And when we talk about grammar, we also talk about word class and inflections and everything that has to do with a word, okay? The next topic is subconscious knowledge. I don't want to think about this deep structure, surface structure, or terms that are rather dated at the moment, but I want you to think about this. I usually read a linguist from the US that's called Ray Jackendoff, and he says that words and sentences are very weird entities. Think about it. Think about a word. A word is so much more than what you can see. So I would like you to compare a word to a photo of yourself. A photo of yourself says very little about you, doesn't it? It says something. We can tell it says something, but not everything about you. And that's what words are, right? And when they combine in sentences, we start drawing conclusions, making inferences, and the meaning is actually much more than what you can see on the surface, to use Chomsky's term, right? Now, speaking of grammar, we're going to think about the concept of something being complete. As I move forward, I'm going to refer you to the same topics we're discussing here, but also on this book by Swan, Practical English Usage. So I'm going to give you the entry numbers that you can look up if you wish, right? So for completeness, Swan is from 509 to 515, right? But also in the booklet that I have given you, this thing called the Decarbone, if you go to the composition writing chapter, you will also find there some sentences that talk about this idea of completeness, right? And as regards this, there's something very important I wanted to know, and that is that for class purposes, I will always demand that when you write full sentences, right? A sentence needs to be complete. So the example given here with an asterisk, remember an asterisk means that the sentence is wrong. I am on page 107, right? His office crowded. That's not complete, right? You need to say something else in order to complete that sentence. We'll go back to this further ahead, right? The next concept is ambiguity. Another technical term for this is amphibology, right? Ambiguity is a term that I'm sure you know. Ambiguity, notice the pronunciation, right? Ambiguous. But also, actually, I wanted to check the adjective, ambiguous. Ambiguous, right? Notice the pronunciation here. Now, ambiguous can be either structural or lexical. Lexical ambiguity is quite simple, right? Say, I tell you, pass me the glasses. Possibly, maybe you don't understand whether it is dos vasos or los anteojos, right? Because the word has two senses and it could be both things. Of course, in context, this will not be a problem. Structural ambiguity, on the other hand, is quite interesting, right? It has to do with obscurity, well, all kind of ambiguity, right? With something that is obscure or vague in terms of meaning, right? So, I'm going to mention several examples I have here with me. There's the title of I think of a film called Expecting Mary. So we don't know if Mary is expecting a baby or somebody is expecting Mary. Also, for example, Peter chased the man with a gun. So we don't know whether the man, had a gun, or Peter was holding a gun while he was chasing the man. If I say new houses and flats, I am very sure that the houses are new, but am I sure the flats are new as well? I don't know. If I speak about the boy's murder, I don't know if he was murdered or whether he murdered somebody else. When there is ellipsis, if I say he loves his dog more than his children, this may mean that he loves his dog more than he loves his children, or that he loves his dog more than his children do. So as you can see, there are many, many instances in which a sentence or a phrase may be ambiguous, right? And this is because because of the interpretation, right, that we can provide for the different structures. The next point is word order. For word order from Swan, you can actually check out several entries from 509 to 515, from 302 to 303, also 184. There are many actually, but I would like to comment on this when we say word order, and this is something possibly you're accustomed to seeing in your writings, right? When you write a composition, maybe the teacher makes a marginal note that says word order, right? And what she means is, well, you need to change the word order, right? But think about these sentences. A mind beautiful. You know that's not possible in English. You say beautiful mind. What about this one? She asked me what my name... Sorry, I said the correct version. She asked me what was my name. That is incorrect in English. The correct version, the correct word order is she asked me what my name was. Another typical mistake from by Spanish speakers is to say, I like very much cats, because we use very much before the noun in Spanish. But in English, you say, I like cats very much. Another typical problem in English is the order of adjectives. You speak of an old political idea or a political old idea. Usually it's an old political idea, right? Well, these are problems in the language that sometimes cause trouble. So when we speak about word order, this is what you need to think about, right? How we're going to order the words in English. Our next category is how we classify sentences. And now we are going to go back to something I mentioned earlier. So a simple sentence has one subject and one predicate. Subject, right? And one predicate. Sujeto y predicado, right? A compound sentence, be careful, has two full sentences. The example here is Mary walked home and Sam took the bus. So in this case you have two subjects, two verbs, basically two sentences joined by and, right? Notice the comma before and, right? When we use and, yet, but, so, the words are here, and yet is missing, right? And so too, but and, or, but, yet, and so, we use a comma before. If we don't use a comma, if we don't use either and, or, but, yet, or so, we use a semicolon. You know the semicolon? There it is. Right? This mark here, right? That is when you don't use and. So that was a compound sentence, right? Notice that in the sentence, Mary walked home and went to bed, I have two verbs, but I have only one subject, right? So the two verbs refer to the same subject, which is Mary. So in this case, what I have is a compound predicate, not a compound sentence. Now there's yet another category, which is a complex sentence. A complex sentence, as it is explained here, has a subordinating conjunction like although, when, because, right? So John left when his sister arrived. This is what we call a complex sentence in grammar. And of course, this is something that you're going to study a lot in grammar, right? The next point is that of a clause, right? And the question is whether we see independent clauses or dependent clauses. And this is where I go back to what I told you some minutes ago about always using a full sentence. For this, you can go to the booklet in the section on composition writing. Once again, at the very end of that section, I suggest several sentences that are actually not sentences, right? That are actually called incomplete sentences. Just give me a second. For example, it's very typical in English to write a text that goes, she was happy, stop, which is odd, right? This is typical today of informal English. This is unacceptable in my classes, right? Simply for the purpose of learning English, I wanted to write full sentences. Also, leave. No, that's unacceptable, right? Leave because I say so. I need a full sentence. I cannot stop here. Leave because I say so. See? All right. We'll see that in greater detail later, right? Maybe this will come up in class. Now, types of sentences. This is very obvious. A sentence may be declarative, so it's in the affirmative or in the negative. It may be a question. We call it interrogative. Imperative sentences and exclamatory sentences. No need to go into this. Voice, we won't discuss voice either, because we'll talk about this when we talk about verbs, right? Now, the next category is rather complex, and that is called parts of speech or lexical categories. We also call this, sorry, word class, right? See, the synonym is part of speech, okay? Now, word class, or types of words, sometimes we also say, are a way of classifying words, right? And you know this, there are nouns, adjectives, verbs. And actually, in this text, we start, the writers started by what we call the content words, right? So words are divided into two large categories, right? On the one hand, what we call content words, or also open class categories, and on the other side, functional or closed class words. Why do we have this distinction? Clearly, a noun is not the same as an interjection, or a verb is not the same as a preposition. We begin to see that the content words are the ones that carry meaning basically in themselves, right? And they are nouns, adjectives, verbs, and adverbs. Now, you see here, if you look at the notes, the next category is pronoun. That's a contested issue, right? Because some people do not think pronouns are content words. I really don't think that is important, right? But do remember then that content words are the types of words that carry meaning. They are an open class because, well, we add adverbs and verbs all the time. Yes, this is something that sometimes annoys certain people because, I don't know, we have the word author, and people now use it as a verb, right? To author a book. For many people, this is very annoying, and this is a very prescriptive view of the language, right? And as I said, there are also the functional words, and these words are a closed category. Why is that? Because we don't add prepositions, we don't add interjections, though we may add one interjection here and there. Usually there aren't too many. What is interesting is that sometimes certain words, like a functional word, may become actually a noun. Think of the word slash, right? There's an article from Merriam-Webster editors that says that the word slash, you know, the symbol slash, has actually become a word, yes? For example, they give the example of that goes like this. I really love that hot dog place on Liberty Street, slash, can we go there? So slash has actually become a noun, right? Or a noun, sometimes people say a sort of conjunction. Also, when you say, do you care or do you mind if my cousin comes and visits / stays with us next Friday? So that's interesting, right? Hashtag also is becoming a word these days. All right. What matters about this is that you need to know the difference, right? You need to know, and you need to know this classification of words, right? How we categorize them. Okay, we're going to start with nouns. If you go to Swan, nouns are entries 523 to 532, also 148 to 149, 222, 430, 439 to 40, 385 to 86, and even 384. Now, don't worry about this. Doesn't mean you have to go. I'm just saying if you want to, this is where you will find this. Now, nouns initially should not be a problem, right? But let's review a couple of things. There are proper nouns in English, right? You know that. Is this a proper noun? It is. Because words of origin in English take capital letters, right? And notice the pronunciation. I'm sure you didn't know this. And there's also this one that also takes capital because it is a word of origin, and the pronunciation is Maori. Be careful, right? You also know that days of the week take capital letters, the months take capital letters, not the seasons anymore, right? They used to, but now they don't. And you know that they're common nouns and they're also mass nouns. Mass nouns is the same as non-countable, sorry, uncountable nouns. But you know that English speakers like to play, right? I'm taking these examples from a book by Cruz, Meaning in Language. And he says to someone, could you move? And the person replies, I don't have much table. And another example that he gives that is really, really nice, I can hear too much piano and not enough violin, right? So words that are actually countable have been used in an uncountable manner. So we can play around with words as you can see. And of course, we can think of nouns as being concrete or abstract, right? You refer to the object. In this case, the piano and the violin also could be seen as concrete and seen from an abstract point of view. Next category is the pronoun. The pronoun is a category that initially for many people will not be a content category because it is a closed category, right? There's a limited number of pronouns. Now, if you don't know this, you have to know what follows. There are, look at the table on page 113, right? This table tells you the typical, the types of pronouns. There are subject or nominative pronouns. Subject or nominative pronouns. I, you, he, she, it, one, you, we, you, they. You know this. There's object or objective. Don't forget that, see there, pronouns. Me, you, him, her, it, one, you, us, you, them, right? The next category, be very careful, is a possessive adjective. Possessive, and I want to stop here because of the pronunciation. Possessive, be very careful, possessive. Now, the possessive adjective is not a pronoun, right? It is here because, well, they are related. But my, your, his, her, one, your, our, your, their are adjectives. Why? Because they're next to a noun. My house, your finger, his dog. Now, the last category, possessive pronouns. Yes, they stand on their own, and you can say this is mine, yours, his, hers, ours, yours, and theirs. There's also demonstrative pronouns. Be careful because it's demonstrative pronouns. And these are this, that, these, and those. But wait, again, it's not this house. It's not these things. A demonstrative pronoun is when it stands on its own. So when I say, these recordings are a bit boring. I know, sorry. There are also interrogative pronouns, who, what, whoever, relative pronouns, and reflexive pronouns. That is for your grammar teacher, so I'm moving on. Now, the next category is that of an adjective. Yes, from Swan, you can go to entries 12 to 19, and you will find lots and lots of information about categories. I'm not going to go on and on and on about them, except that, of course, you can have comparative and superlative adjectives, and you know that some of them are regular and some of them are not. What really interests me is the question at the bottom, which is attributive or predicative. And attributive adjective is one that comes before a noun, yes, so smart students. Predicative is an adjective that comes after a verb that we usually call a copulative verb, right? The soup smells tasty, right? Now, attributive is something that interests me, remember, because I have talked about this idea of a guilt trip, right? And remember that guilt is a noun, but when it functions as a, when it describes the trip, right, it becomes an attributive noun, right? So it has attributive function. Anyway, sometimes it appears here as an adjective, right? Okay, our next category is going to be the verb, right? The verb is a complex category, but at the same time, it is a very simple one, right? Because the verb phrase in English is very simple when you compare it to the verb phrase in Spanish, right? It is one with great variation in form, right? Sometimes people say that it is strange, it's sort of a quirk of English morphology that the S denotes singularity, right? When you say she goes or she takes, right? Well, we also think about verbs being transitive or intransitive, that is to say whether they take an object or not. So you go, you do something, right? Or you buy an object. That is a transitive verb, right? An intransitive verb will be one that doesn't take an object, like the sun rises, right? All right, table 8.3 gives you all the tense forms in English, and you can see how simple this is, right? We don't even have the future in English. That's we don't have a tense actually for the future, right? A verb can show tense. That is to say, the relationship between form and time. In English, tense can only show past or present, right? Not future. The verb phrase can also show its aspect that has to do with the manner in which we express the action. We can see the action basically as completed, right? Or in progress, so the perfect forms and the progressive forms. And also the verb phrase shows mood, right? And mood is when you see the action as being certain or possible, right? Now the thing is that mood in English is not the same as in Spanish, right? We'll see that later. Actually, at the end, if it's language 1 for teachers at the end of the term, and if it's for translators, this will be language 2 actually. Okay, the next category is the adverb. The adverb is a category that you will find in Swan from 21 to 25, also 26. You can check out 27. Usually we identify an adverb because it ends in ly, right? But possibly you know that not all adverbs end in ly. You speak of an orderly system. Orderly is an adjective. A weekly meeting. Weekly is an adjective. Deadly sport. Deadly is an adjective. So be careful, beware. Not all ly, or words that end in ly are adverbs, and also there are words that do not end in ly and function as an adverb, right? All right, there are different types of adverbs, and we're not going to get into that, right? You have table 8.4 for the different present, past, and future tense forms. The future actually takes the modal, right? Prepositions, as it says here, they're very difficult to define. You know what prepositions are. We won't get into that. And coordinating, sorry, as regards conjunctions, there are different types. Once again, we're not going to get very much into that, but there are coordinating conjunctions, and, or, but, so, and I would say yet. Correlative conjunctions, either, or, neither, nor, and subordinating conjunctions, so they subordinate the structure. Next are interjections. Interjections are very interesting because sometimes we don't know how to pronounce, all right? So be careful. Hooray, hooray. The spelling might change, right? And there's also right? So usually they're very difficult to spell out. Actually, Oxford used to have a very nice list of maybe it is here, I never checked. There it is. There's a beautiful list of interjections in English, right? Few, whoops, right? Notice it used to be whoops and whoopee and you and gee, right? You have all of them here. Actually, what is interesting is to check, look at this one, to check the pronunciation, right? Yippee in British English and yippee in American English, right? Okay, that's a great choice. So remember, it's under more like this, exclamations. And we also have determiners. We're not going to get into that. All right. The question of phrases is something you're going to see in grammar, so I'm going to set you free here. And the same goes for relative clauses, right? So we're going to move on to what is chapter 7. You see now we come to page 97, and this is chapter 7, which is about words, right? And when we talk about words, we talk about morphemes, right? We talk about, don't worry about this question again, free or bound morpheme. This is something we're going to study in grammar as well. But what interests me is the question of affixes. An affix is a superordinate term, right? It's a term that includes prefixes, suffixes, and infixes, right? These three words, prefixes, suffixes, and infixes, are co-hyponyms, right? They're part of the category affixes. There are no infixes in English, right? We do have some in Spanish. For example, humareda, esa A que se agrega ahí, ensanchar, porque es de humo, ¿no? Ensanchar, que es hacer más ancho, esa S también es un infijo, right? Don't worry about this. These are minor problems. I am interested in you seeing the different types of morphemes, right? There are derivational morphemes and inflectional morphemes, right? Derivational morphemes are the ones that change either the meaning of the word or the word class, right? So from the word friend that you have here, you can have unfriendly and friendly and unfriendly. Maybe, I don't know, we can look up direction, and these appear in the margin here to the right. You will see different variations for the different morphemes that you can add, right? Directional and directionless. These are always useful, right? Inflectional morphemes, on the other hand, please note the tables on page 99, which are very useful, right? Table 7.2 is prefixes and suffixes, and table 7.3 with inflectional morphemes. You see that there are very few, right? There are only 7, no, 2, 4, 6, 8. The ing, ed, en, s, er, est, and apostrophe s, right? These are all. There isn't anything more, right? Inflectional morphemes. You could also say that inflectional morphemes is a superordinate category, right? In itself, actually, it's a holonym because all the members are co-meronyms because they fulfill different functions. But there's no need for us to get into that. From table 7.2. I want to comment just in passing, for example, the first one, anti, which in American English becomes anti, usually. Also, from the list of suffixes, you have full, right? F-U-L, that we tend to misspell with double L, right? Plentiful, for example, takes only one L. It means full of, and full of does take double L, but not the words that carry that morpheme, right? Okay, as I said, this is going to be something you're going to see a lot in grammar. And actually, now I'm going to take you to maybe the most interesting part of this chapter, which is words and new words, actually, right? There are many new words in English because English is a very flexible language, right? It's a very welcoming language. Spanish feels uncomfortable about using words in other from other languages, right? We tend, however, to use lots of false friends, right? We incorporate English words, but English is very comfortable adding words from different languages, right? Now, within this category, we have many, not that many, a good number of categories. The first one is here acronym. The word acronym is of Greek origin, and I'm sure you know this word in Spanish, acrónimo, no problem. But I would like to say that an acronym is one of the many abbreviations, right? Abbreviation. That is to say, when we make something shorter, right? So the abbreviation for saint, right? Or AC for air conditioning, ad lib for ad libitum, PC for personal computer. Now, these vary, actually. There are different types of abbreviations. Sometimes it's just a word that has been curtailed, right? So rhino for rhinoceros, right? Fridge for refrigerator. So we may actually curtail the word at the beginning and at the end. Pants for pantaloons, right? Pub for public house. And actually maybe many others. Sorry, I don't know if the dictionary gives you mob, but mob comes from mobile vulgus. No, they don't tell us where it comes from, so don't worry. Flash mob, that's a very nice noun plus noun combination, right? Very popular these days, though less popular now. Okay, so an acronym is a word, as I said, the same as in Spanish. And what identifies an acronym is that it can be read as a word, right? So the examples here are radar, and that's okay. That's actually an acronym because radar means radio detecting and ranging. Sorry, let's look it up. But there are many others that are really fun. Snafu is one that I like a lot. This means situation normal. Situation normal, all fouled or fucked up, right? So it's actually an acronym. You read it out as a word, right? Also, there's another one that's very, very popular. I don't know if this one is here, to be frank. A pank. No, they don't have it. It's a professional and no kids, right? But dink is here. And we speak of a dinky couple. Dink. Oh, first you get the verb, sorry. Dink means double income, no kids yet. Oh, it's not here. No, they don't have it. Sorry, I thought they did have it. Dink, right? D-I-N-K is something people use as double income, no kids yet. So a dinky couple. Let's see if I find it here. A dinky couple is actually a couple that is well off. They have a lot of money, right? No, it seems they don't have it. How unusual. All right. Now, those are acronyms. There are also other abbreviations that I think are very important that you need to know. I'm sure you know some of them, but not all of them. One is Mr. No problem. Remember that British English will not take a full stop after, but American English does. right? And we also have, check the spelling, sorry, the pronunciation, the spelling and the pronunciation, messers. This is the plural for Mr., right? And you also know you have Mrs. Check the pronunciation, please. S and then Z, Mrs. But there's also Ms. What is a Ms? This is when you don't want to say, oh, this is multiple sclerosis. Sorry, this is the one I wanted. The pronunciation is Ms., right? So that we don't get confused with Miss, right? So this is Ms., and it means that the woman, we don't know whether she's married or not. She doesn't want to say, right? And there's also Miss here, and the pronunciation will be Miss, right? With an S. Miss, right? Okay, now we have acronyms, we have these type of curtailed words, and we also have initialisms. I'm pretty sure the term is not here. Initialism is the word we use in, oh, it is, in Spanish for sigla, right? When you say CD is an initialism for compact disc. Why do we call it initialism? Because we say only the first letter, right? And that's what una sigla is, right, in Spanish. So CIA, CD, ONG, right? Oh, they don't have ONG, that's odd. And many others, right? But remember that when you, so for example, NATO, right, is actually an acronym because you read it out as a word, right? But OUN, no, let's see if they have it. No, they don't have it. Don't worry. Okay, next category is back formation. This is not really important. This is when you, from a noun, you create a verb, right? Like from burglar, you come up with burgle. Initially, the first word was burglar. English has this point of view that has to do with etymology, right? So these are etymological issues that actually are not important for you. Now, for many people, this is annoying, right? The fact that we turn a noun into a verb, and it's perceived on many occasions as an obnoxious Americanism, right? This happens with the verb to author or to guest, for example, or to publicize or to miniaturize. Well, actually, this is functional shift when I turn a noun into a verb, but not many people like this. Okay, the next category is clipping. Clipping is a very nice category. It's very popular in English, but it is another type of abbreviation, right? You have examples here like TAT for tattoo, phone for telephone, gas for gasoline, and petrol for petroleum, right? But there are many others, sorry, like vet, right? Which is veterinarian, prep for preparation, pro, well, they have another meaning there, sorry, pro for professional, right? What else? Pram. Now, what happens with pram is that actually this word is not only abbreviated, but it changes, right? Let's see, wait, not here. Let's see if they have, yes, the word origin will give us, it comes from perambulator, right? So that what has happened here is that there was a change in the word, and that is also what happens with other clippings like preggers. I don't know if they have this one. It means pregnant, right? Somebody's preggers, right? And let's see if they have this one. This is a short for presents, right? You want some prezzies. All right. Next category, a huge success in English, blending, but also portmanteau. Yes, you speak of a blending or a portmanteau word, right? This is a bit, it is a technical term, right? Oh, no example. Oh, because they're not giving us, sorry, we need to go to portmanteau words. And here you have the example like motel, which is a blend of motor and hotel. Now the many, I don't know if they're going to be all here. Channel with you, right, is the channel that connects the British and the French, right? That's the channel, because it is a channel that is also a tunnel, right? Well, there are too many. Let's go to, for example, bromance, right? I'm sure you know this one because it is very popular. It's a very close friendship between two men, so it's a brothers romance, right? There was Brexit. This one is not going to be here. And people were claiming for Britain right now. Of course, that's not there. There's also Oxbridge. Which is the combination of Oxford and Cambridge. Blog is actually a blend, right? Web plus log. Glamping. Do you know glamping? When you go camping, but okay, in a glamorous function, in a glamorous fashion, sorry. Well, there are too many. We also have them in Spanish. We have Spanglish, Macholiva, Portuñol, Mostanesa, and many others, right? Okay, the next one is compounding. This is a very important category in English. Compounding is when you put together two nouns. In this case, we're going to talk about two nouns. Now, there are two ways of putting two nouns together. Sometimes they become solid, that is, they become one word. So you speak of a solid compound or a closed compound, right? Now, this varies, right? Let's see. The example they give you here is a mole rat. You see, for them, it's two words, right? This is not closed, but rather open. Notice it's not opened. It is an open compound. Let's see. Let's see if I have another closed compound. Usually, it takes time for two words to become. Well, weekend is one word, right? But it takes time for two nouns to become only one word, right? Usually they are either hyphenated, that is, there's a hyphen in between, right, to join them, and that is the case, for example, of man hour, or yes man, or woman hater. Let's see, coffee shop will be entered as two words, right? Yes. Sometimes you do this. This is what we refer to this as the way the dictionaries style the words, right? Well, it appears as two words here, right? So it's an open compound, but in some of the cases it will be closed. There's something, breadcrumb, you know, breadcrumbs, right? So we have here two nouns, and they become a word. And look at this one. This is something that we call a breadcrumb trail, and that's, you have the links at the top of a page, you know. You can see this, right? Well, actually, you see them differently. All right, compounding is a very important part of language. English loves to create new compounds, and it does it with great ease, right? And usually trying to be figurative, right? We speak of the brain drain, for example. So it's not that the brains go down the drain, but actually that people leave the country, right? You speak about protection money, and that's the kind of money you pay. Well, no, they don't have it. Protection order. Well, what really matters is that we remember that when we have two nouns together, usually the meaning will not be referential, it will be figurative, so it will be demanding on us to get to understand what this means. There are many others that you know very well, like, oh, the one we mentioned a couple of minutes ago, a flash mob. I don't need to tell you what a flash mob is because I'm sure you know, but maybe your parents don't know what a flash mob is, and I'm sure your grandparents don't know what a flash mob is, right? And the two words do not really explain the meaning of the flash mob, right? And remember that flash here is an adjective. Now, initially, flash is a noun, right? That's what the dictionary is going to tell us, and it is going to be listed as an adjective because I can use it to modify another noun, a flash car, for example, or a flash dresser, right? Okay, the next category is derivation, and for this, we're not talking about what we mentioned earlier, right? We're not talking about derivational or inflectional morphemes. We're talking about some morphemes that change words. Well, sorry, we are, but I wanted to talk about another group like these ones. Please check the stress. Decathlon, right? Now, from this decathlon, we have pentathlon and pentathlon. Notice the stress. And now the stress, where does it land? Triathlon. Well, and you have biathlon and heptathlon and tetrathlon and, well, and whatnot. But you also have a walkathon. Will that be there? No, yes. Oh, well, they have it as one word, right? Well, walkathon, right? When people get together and walk, basically, right? But to raise money, naturally, right? We also have other types of affixes that are really interesting. For example, you know what a kissogram is, right? There's also stripogram, right? And sometimes we use vil as a component for a word, right? As an affix, as in hatredville. Of course, this is not going to be here, right? Also boredomville, right? All right. We also have combinations with worthy. Right, newsworthy, it is worthy of news. And we also have combinations with wise, like clockwise, family-wise. I don't know if this is going to be here. Yeah. All right. Next category, foreign words. English loves foreign words. You know that English has many words from Spanish, like siesta, right? Mi casa es su casa, something they like a lot. But we have words from French. And I want you to check here, I didn't use the stress, sorry. Yes, fiancé. Notice the pronunciation, fiancé, and the stress is here. Yes, British English likes to anglicize words of French origin, so they pronounce it in an anglicized manner, so they say fiancé. But Americans like French and the French, so they say fiancé, trying to imitate French pronunciation. That's why in English we say, in British English we say ballet, and Americans say ballet, and croquet, croquet, and crochet, right? So that the stress is going to vary. As you can see here, we have words from French, from Italian. English is very welcoming, right? And we call these words from other languages borrowings, which in Spanish becomes préstamo, right? People's names. This is a very important category, right? You know that many words that come from people who design something, like the famous sandwich, right? And Braille and malapropism. This is a beautiful word. It comes from a character actually in the play, and it's used for anybody who uses makes mistakes when speaking, like saying chicken instead of kitchen, right? Well, saxophone. I wanted to mention some that are not here, like cardigan and Macintosh, right? For those who design these clothing. And boycott is also a name. But please remember that boycott is not the guy who boycotted, but rather the one who was boycotted, right? Is an Irish land agent treated in this way in 1880, right? So he treated people badly, so he was boycotted. Next is trade names. So trade names here will appear with the trademark symbol. So if you look up Xerox, right, hopefully it will have, no, that's odd. Well, oh yes, here it is, the trademark symbol, right? Now the thing is that it became a noun, right? And we used to speak of making a Xerox copy or Xeroxing something. Xeroxing something. Today we use photocopy a lot more, right? Frisbee is also a trade name. Well, there are many. And finally, technology, which is something that you already know. There are many words that are created, and these we call neologisms, right? This was on page 101 under the title How New Words Are Created, right? A neologism. We have many words with E, right? New words, neologism. Well, you have, actually it's a lot more effective to look at it like this, right? So e-bike, e-book, e-business, e-card, e-cash, e-secret, e-commerce, e-fit. I don't know what that is. Must be a machine, right? It's a picture of a person who is wanted. Oh, look at that. A person who is wanted by the police. I didn't know. So we'll learn something with you today at the very end of the class. So this is a very long video. I am sorry. Be patient. Bye.